Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of Sonic X. Okay, so I decided to bring my review of Sonic X back. I have been trying to bring it back for the longest time, and I've been trying to make a gap in my schedule for it because there's been a lot of shows I wanted to cover. And now that I finally finished Solar Opposites, I figured, why the hell not? I thought that I'd bring it back today. So, yeah, in case this episode kind of once again picks up where they last one left off. And I should probably do that where they fought against the Starship last time, which, yeah, was a big thing, but, in any case, this episode kind of delves a little bit more into Cosmo's trauma with them and get for the Meta-X, but also kind of explains a couple of things that we've seen previously as well. So first and foremost, the episode opens up with a flashback where we meet Cosmo's sister Galaxina, who and Cosmo is just kind of walking on her ship with her fellow aliens, and she meets Galaxina, and Galaxina tells her that Mother's been worried about her and that she's been worried sick about her, but of course Cosmo points out that she's sorry and that she had been daydreaming a lot. But Galaxina tells her that it's okay and that they're kind of used to it by now, which Cosmo takes offense to. But they then proceed to they then proceed to actually go and visit Mother, which is revealed to be a giant tree just in the base of in their ship. And of course they greet Mother, and it makes perfect sense. They're plant-based aliens. Of course, their mother would be a tree, but they greet Mother, and of course they apologize for the fact that they were daydreaming, and it's of course at this point where Cosmo asks Galaxina if she thinks that Mother daydreams as well, and then proceeds to point out her thoughts about how she believes that mother most likely daydreams about the day where they'll one day be able to settle down and recolonize another planet, because they're currently on the run from the Meta-X. Galaxina points out that's a wonderful thought, but that dream won't come true until the Meta-X are ultimately destroyed, and they really have no choice but to do that. And of course, they then proceed to set down. They then proceed to go. Galaxina then proceeds to tell them that they actually have a plan that they actually need to go do some errands, and because states they'll be back soon to visit Mother. At which point they leave to go do their errands. And at which point Cosmo is then snapped back to the present, where we find out that they're actually on another planet that's and the Meta, and they're currently they tracked another Chaos Emerald there. They've tracked another Chaos Emerald to that planet, and they quickly find and what we find out is that Tails and Chris are having a conversation over the airwaves about how they need to find the Chaos Emerald, that they need to find the Chaos Emerald, and conclude that it's most likely buried deep underground somewhere. And Tails points out that they'll easily find it, and that they all just need to look diligently. But at which point it's revealed that Chris, as well as Cream Cheese, and to a lesser extent Sonic, who as always is just chilling on the outside of the plane rather than being in it like a safe little boy. They fly overhead and tell them to hurry up and get a move on, and they fly overhead while Cream and Cheese just kind of wave at them, and it's very cute. But in case at this point where of course Amy stays in the ship, or stays behind on the ship, and it's for communication reasons. And while Knuckles kind of leads Tails and Cosmo to go look for the Chaos Emerald, and they eventually arrive at this destroyed village looking place, which they quickly conclude is most likely the sign that the Meta-X have been there. And of course Cosmo can't help but be sad about this. But since it reminds her a lot of her current situation, about how there used to be friends and families that frolicked around there, and that's now they're all gone. and she kind of it kind of reminds her of her own position, because now her sister, her mother, and everybody else is gone and left completely alone. And of course she eventually realizes that she's talking to herself, because Tails overhears the latter part of that, and she realizes, and she just tells him that that's nothing. At which point Knuckles calls them over, and they quickly discover a massive pit, which Knuckles concludes is most likely about at least a mile deep. And concludes that, but Tails then proceeds to read the monster on his wrist of communicator, and concludes that the Chaos Emerald is in fact down there, so they need to go down there and look for it. And of course, it's at this point where they proceed to go down. They need to go down and actually find it. They need to go down and actually find it. Knuckles uses his shovel claws to actually dig into the side of it and starts climbing down, while Tails uses Tails to actually get himself and Cosmo into the cave system as well. But of course, Cosmo quickly notices that it's dark in there and tells Tails to be careful. But as she says that, she accidentally pushes a button, which of course she doesn't fully understand what she did at first, but she both causes a cave in, which traps him inside, but also it causes the floor underneath him to collapse, and Tails and Cosmo then proceed to fall deeper into the pit, and Knuckles eventually arrives there once he's there, and he quickly finds out that they're buried in, and then he needs to start digging his way through. Meanwhile, on the X Tornado, Chris points out that he's worried about the fact that Cosmo and Tails might be in a little bit of danger, pointing out that obviously it's an underground mission, and if they're not careful, it could easily be a problem. But of course, Cream and Cheese reassure him, pointing out that that's probably fine since they've got Knuckles with them, and they point out that Knuckles is very strong, very, very capable, and that he could probably protect them from pretty much anything that goes wrong. And of course, Sonic then proceeds to walk up to the cockpit from the outside of the plane, and tells Chris that he has nothing to worry about, and that whatever happens, Knuckles will be there to handle it. But it's at this point where they actually get a communication from Amy, who reveals that actually Knuckles told them there was a cave in, and that they need to get there immediately to help out. And of course, they immediately drop everything to go to where Knuckles is currently trying to punch a hole through all the things with his shovel knuckles, and Eamon just comments that he really shows off a lot, pointing out that he's digging his way through the tunnel using his shovel knuckles, while Chris does a map of the area with his communicator, and since they've lost communication with Tails, as we find out in a minute from Tails' end, the reason they need to now find another way in, and eventually he finds out that it's actually a large interconnecting system of caves, and that they can easily just find another way in by virtue of just finding another cave entrance and eventually navigating their way in. And Amy concludes that they can most likely just leave Knuckles to do his thing while they go exploring for a little while and find another way in. And they then proceed to leave to go and do exactly that, while Knuckles continues to dig his way into the cave. Meanwhile, Tails is woken up and is revealed to have hit his head on the way down, and doesn't really remember much about what happened, other than that there was a huge cave in and collapse. And Cosmo apologizes, pointing out that's all his fault, and he eventually realizes it was in fact the button, and then he also tells Cosmo that there's no real reason for her to apologize, because as he reveals, they're actually exactly where they want to be. They've actually found their way down deep into the cave, and then makes them one step closer to finding the Chaos Emerald. But he then proceeds to get up, but Cosmo insists that he sit down again, pointing out that he's hurt, and then proceeds to rip off I don't know what, but a part of her skirt. I want to say, but she rips off a part of something, and wraps it and uses it as a makeshift bandage to wrap around Tails' head, even though Tails admits that he's fine and that he doesn't really need one, but Cosmo admits that she doesn't care and is better safe than sorry, and very, very tenderly gives him a thing, which causes Tails to blush a little bit, which is very cute. But they then proceed to get up, and it's at this point where they notice a bunch of strange fireflies, which they note are a little interesting and a little different and a little weird. and Cosmo and Tails ultimately decide to follow them, pointing out that maybe it'll lead them somewhere. And indeed, it does. And it's revealed that the thing that they led them to is a giant underground factory, which they then conclude is most likely made by the Metarex, and that they're going to need to find their way into it. And of course they do. They go climb inside, and it is revealed to actually be controlled by a bunch of Lamia-like Metarex. They have an upper human body and a lower snake-like body, so they're very snake-like, they're slithering around, and they quickly realize that they need to start sneaking their way through, and while also continuing to follow the signal through the factory, and eventually they do wind up finding the Chaos Emerald. But it's revealed that that's actually not the only Chaos Emerald that they found, and that's actually revealed to actually be the whole Chaos Emerald. It's not just one Chaos Emerald, but it's revealed to actually be a whole room full of Chaos Emeralds, which of course Tails and Cosmo notice a little bit odd. So they do start making their way in. They do make their way into the room, and they start looking around. And Tails starts thinking about it for a second, and eventually he concludes that this is most likely the room that they got on Planet Breezy got his Chaos Emerald. Concludes pointing out that he had a fake one, and Cosmo notes that he's probably right, but also realizes the implications for that is that they now have effectively mass-produced a bunch of Chaos Emeralds, and for some purpose, and they have no real idea of what it is they're actually being used for. So, but also concludes that it is some sort of strange thing, and they eventually conclude that the one in the center of the room is most likely the real Chaos Emerald, and note that the machinery seems to be draining it somehow, which they note, and Tails opens the monitor to see if there's any sort of information he can pull from it, but quickly realizes he can't actually read the language, but thankfully, Cosmo is revealed to actually be able to read the language that's written in it perfectly. And she then proceeds to explain what it is, about how it's a Chaos Emerald manufacturing plant, and that it's designed it's actually draining the Chaos Emeralds so that they can use the energy to make more Chaos Emeralds. And of course they conclude that they'll most likely need to shut down the operation. But before that, Tails realizes that they're going to need this information for the future, so that they can actually read it, and decides to download it to his communicator so that they can read it once they get back to the ship. Although Cosmo points out, and also is very thankful for the fact that Cosmo was able to read the language that was written there. But even though Cosmo tries to be modest and points out that she wasn't much help since she can't read any of the more technical stuff, but Tails points out that it was actually a very big help, since otherwise he wouldn't have any idea what the machinery was actually for. He would just be reading a bunch of gobbledygook on the screen, and it would have taken him a lot longer to translate. It's at this point where the lead Metarex is also a snake person, but also not notably any different than the other ones. He walks in and tells them that they has to eliminate them because they're intruders, and proceeds to slither up and tries to attack them. But at which point Tails, having fully downloaded all the data he needs, unplugs his thing from the monitor, and while Cosmo takes the Chaos Emerald from its glass chamber that's in. And of course, the Metarex tells them not to go anywhere near the Chaos Emerald, but they of course don't listen, and then proceed to rip up some cables from the machinery, and uses that to electrocute the Metarex, and they manage to escape with the Chaos Emerald. But the lead Metarex eventually gets back to the command center of the factory, and tells the other Metarex that they have intruders that have stolen their Chaos Emerald, and that they actually need to get it back. And of course, this winds up becoming a big problem, because, as it turns out, the Metarex are able to find out where Tails and Cosmo are by through the same way that Tails and Cosmo found the Chaos Emerald in the first place. They can also read the energy signature coming from the Chaos Emerald and follow them that way. And Tails and Cosmo eventually hide behind a bush where Cosmo quickly realizes that the Chaos Emerald is giving away their location, and is kind of upset about the fact that they may in fact be discovered. And of course, it's at this point where Tails then realizes why the Fireflies look so strange. concluding that they're actually robots charged with energy from the Chaos Emeralds. And after scooping up a whole bunch of them, he then proceeds to release them into the air, which makes it so that the Metarex can't actually track them anymore and figure out where the Chaos Emeralds are. Which of course causes the lead Metarex to become very confused because he doesn't know how it was actually done and concludes that it's something impossible. But of course, Cosmo compliments Tails on his brilliance. And the two of them blush for a little bit, at which point they then proceed to try and walk out of the cave, now that they know that the Metarex can't really track them because of what Tails did. And of course, it's at this point where Cosmo is the one holding the Chaos Emerald, and she comments that it's a very pleasant feeling to be holding a Chaos Emerald. Pointing out that it gives her a very warming sensation, like when Mother used to soothe her. And the warming like that Mother used to produce, and concludes that it is a very similar idea. That's a very similar feeling, and Tails concludes that that's most likely just because of how the Chaos Emerald works, and Cosmo doesn't fully understand, so Tails proceeds to go on to explain that the Chaos Emerald, of course, we know this, draws energy from the emotions of the person holding it. So in the possession of somebody good, i.e., someone like Sonic, it produces only positive emotions and is very pleasant and very soothing to be around. However, in the presence of someone evil, like say Eggman or Dark Oak, it generates negative emotions and generates negative power, which of course causes Cosmo to immediately become a little bit scared of it, and she immediately tells Tails to take the Chaos Emerald away from her. And when Tails asks her why, she then proceeds to point out that all she's filled with is hatred for the Metarex, pointing out that all she's filled with is sorrow and hatred, and she doesn't believe there's any good in her. So for that reason, she asks Tails to take it away from her, because all that can really come from it is destruction. And this causes Tails to become upset, because obviously he doesn't think that Cosmo is a bad person at all. But of course, is this point where the Metarex, despite all odds, actually managed to track them a little bit, and finally actually winds up knocking Tails away mid-conversation, and then proceeds to snatch up the Chaos Emerald. And also, Tails' wrist communicator is knocked free in the process. But they conclude of course the Metarex tell them that to take the Chaos Emerald from them, and this is the silver one specifically. But I don't think I mentioned that. But Tails then becomes increasingly upset and becomes angry with them and tells them to give it back. Although Cosmo tells him to back down, pointing out that it's not worth it. And the Metarex then proceeds to surround them with the lead Metarex, telling them that he should very well listen to his friend. But of course, Tails points out that he's not really scared at all of them, and tells Cosmo that he'll be okay, and then proceeds to attack the Metarex that took the Chaos Emerald, which causes it to drop it, and Tails instructs Cosmo to take it, and she does. She immediately scoops it up, while the Metarex points out that they actually do not, that Tails insists that she shouldn't touch the Chaos Emerald, but she does anyway. But also in the process, as Tails is fighting the Metarex, he winds up getting grabbed by one of them and is unable to get free by himself. And to this point, with Tails now captive, they then proceed to surround Cosmo and tell her to give back the Chaos Emerald. But she ultimately refuses, and then we find out that now the rest of the group are actually close enough to actually get communication reestablished with Tails, because we then hear Chris on the other end, who asks if everybody's okay, and Tails just hollers back that they've grabbed him, and that they need to hurry, but Sonic reassures him on the other end as well, telling him that they won't have them for long. At which point it's revealed that they're literally right next to them, and proceed to burrow a hole through with Sonic's speed dash, which at which point he then proceeds to fight several of the Metarex, and when the lead Metarex insists who dares and actually challenges them, it's at this point where Amy reveals that she dares, and then uses her Pico hammer to just knock him and several of the Metarex around for a little bit, and it's at this point where Tails is actually freed by them, and he joins the fight as well. And also, Chris joins the fight with it because of course he trained himself in martial arts, but we've established that he hasn't been able to do that since being reverted back to a teenager. But But he winds up compensating for that in this fight by using a pistol to take down the Metarex instead. Which of course knocks several of them out. And Cosmo, seeing all of this, quickly realizes that they're a lot more capable than she as always they're a lot more capable than she thinks they are. And Tails once again reassures her, telling her that they're actually a lot more capable, and that there's no such thing as a negative emotion when it's in service of your friends. And Cosmo ultimately agrees to her, but it's at this point where the lead Metarex picks himself back up, and proceeds to get ready to fight Sonic. But then Tails and Cosmo toss the Chaos Emerald to Sonic, which Sonic then uses to empower himself. And he then proceeds to effortlessly defeat the lead Metarex, no problem. At which point they return back to the surface, where Chris compliments Tails on his and Cosmo on their find, pointing out that now that they have this data, they could quite easily just keep on top of the Metarex's plan to wipe all the planet eggs, and also maybe head them off in the past and get the planet eggs as they're instead of the Metarex, and with Cream actually adding to the fact that maybe now they can if with this they can actually maybe return the planet eggs back to the planets that have been destroyed and restore order to the galaxy, now that they know what their plans are. And this, of course, and of course, Amy points out that they'll be able to do it now that they have their marvelous translator, and then also gestures to Cosmo, and Cosmo blushes a little bit and is very happy to be of service. Although she once again admits she's nothing special, but Tails once again reassures her that she was in fact a big help, and that they wouldn't have found the data without her. And then they conclude that all they need to do now is find the remaining Chaos Emeralds, and also finally be able to put a stop to the Metarex's plan to steal the planet eggs once and for all, which makes them all very happy. But then Knuckles reemerges from the ground and is trying to find Tails and Cosmo, because he got a little turned around and doesn't realize that it's already been been there, done that. And when he finally realizes the rest of the gang are standing around with them, they all laugh at him when they find at his confusion, and while he hollers at them to get him out of the hole. That's just. The new Sonic movies. They've kind of established that Knuckles is is naive but not stupid, and this is very much this once again reaffirms that character trait of his. He didn't realize he got turned around, but didn't realize it until it was too late. He's not stupid. He's just naive. But in case the episode then proceeds to end though with a shot of Dark Oak, who reveals that the group is actually taking the bait, and that this is now going to be very beneficial to his plans, and that it actually falls perfectly into his plans, which is that his plan is to actually get them to seek out the Chaos Emeralds for him, so that he can suddenly strike and take them all at once. And of course he then gloats that once he's able to do that, he'll be able to crush them, and then they'll soon know the full extent of his might, and that no one, not even Dr. Eggman or even Sonic, will be able to stand against him. And then he ends the episode on an evil laugh, and the episode ends. So. This episode is kind of an interesting one. It's just an interesting one to come back to. I remember some of what happened with the Metarex saga up to this point, which is interesting. It's been a while since I've seen it, so of course I'm a little hazy on the details. But I don't know. It's a fun episode to come back to, because it does kind of recontextualize. It does kind of continue on some things, and I do kind of like it for that. But it also gave a couple of flashbacks, which help. So that's definitely helpful in actually reestablishing some things in my brain, and I'm very happy about that being a thing. But this is a fun series. I'm remembering why I reviewed this series in the first place. It's a fun series, and I am looking forward to reviewing it again. This was a fun series, and I'm sorry it took so long to re-review it, but I'm back now. I'm gonna re-review it again, and we're gonna continue on with that. But in case. This was a fun episode. I very much enjoyed it, but thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on with the channel, just be sure to go check this out. And also, be sure to go check out my Patreon if you want to help support future projects. That's just helpful. Also, be sure to check out my Twitch. I stream Saturdays and Sundays. I'm trying to push for affiliate, so I am doing I'm doing everything on my end to actually get my metrics up. I've actually been streaming a lot, which does help and has been bringing up my metrics. But I can't do it without you guys, and I absolutely need the help with that. So be sure to go check out my Twitch. Again, Saturdays and Sundays are when I stream. Be sure to go check out. The link is in the description. And also, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is a video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So if you want to try something new or see more of what you like, then be sure to check both of those videos out. Also, if you want some recommendations from me, I recommend just going to, if you want to know where to start with any of my content, I recommend just any of the several Sonic playthroughs that I've done. I'm trying to finish up a couple of them, like Sonic Mania and like Sonic Mania and Sonic Unleashed, which they recently updated the latter one to run at 60 frames per second, so I'm absolutely going to be checking that out soon-ish. I need to make room for that in my schedule, but I will eventually bring that back. And also, we're going to be covering Sonic Frontiers very soon, so be sure to go check. So when that Let's Play comes, you go check that one out. I'm absolutely going to be playing that the day it comes out. Yeah, just go check those out. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.